Tonight, a massive new investment in Toronto housing receives a warm reception, but the timeline doesn't.
It's promising, but the funds needs to come a lot faster.
Why the mayor and the Ford government are critical of new housing commitments they desperately need from the feds.
I'm an emotional wreck.
Plus, Reno ripoff. Contractors say a Toronto couple was grossly overcharged by a door-to-door salesman. Police are now involved, and the family has a warning for you.
If it's a provincial project and their hands are all over it, why not conduct a true environmental assessment? I think the government is afraid of what they would find.
And suing over the spa at Ontario Place. Why this group is taking the province to court, arguing the spa must be included in environmental reviews. We'll show you how the Ford government is defending its plan to improve Toronto's waterfront. I'm Chris Glover, live in the CBC Toronto newsroom with local reaction to that major breaking development in the now 6-week war between Israel and Hamas. Late tonight, Israel's cabinet approved a ceasefire deal with Hamas that would bring a temporary halt to the war and see the release of dozens of hostages being held in Gaza in exchange for Palestinians in Israeli prisons. Under the deal, Hamas is to free 50 of the roughly 240 hostages during a 4-day ceasefire. Israel agreed to extend the lull by an additional day every 10 hostages released. The first hostages to be released would be women and children. In exchange, Hamas said in a statement that about 150 Palestinian women and children will be released from Israeli jails. Now to the local reaction we're tracking to the breaking news. A Toronto woman whose aunt was killed in the attack on October 7th and who still has family members being held hostage by Hamas, had this to say about the agonizing and uncertain wait she'll have to endure over the next few days.
The way it's going to be is horrific. It's a psychological war. Only in the evening before of every day, we're going to get a list with 10 to 13 names on it that they will be the one to be released in the morning, only the night before. That means no sleep for the next 4 and 5 days until you know who is on the list and who is coming home.
B'nai B'rith Canada reacting to the news tonight, saying in a statement the goal must remain to free all hostages being held by Hamas. Until the last hostage is released, there will remain families enduring an incomprehensible, ongoing nightmare brought on by the actions of remorseless terrorists. Meantime, the National Council of Canadian Muslims also releasing a statement tonight. It reads in part, many Canadian Muslims are seeing the news of a break in the fighting with something between utter sadness and a tiny glimmer of hope. This temporary pause is good, but only if it bridges to greater action. The group goes on to demand we need to see a permanent ceasefire and an end to the war. Ahead of tonight's cabinet vote, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Israel would resume its offensive against Hamas after the ceasefire expires. The start time of the truce is expected to be announced within the next 24 hours. Now to new reaction here in Toronto to major economic news from the federal government's fall economic statement today. Billions of dollars is coming to cities to help with the housing crunch. And while the province and the city of Toronto are happy about the cash, they are frustrated with the timeline. Patrick Swadden has the story.
Forecasting slower economic growth and a larger than predicted deficit over the next 6 years, Federal Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland still had some good news for Canadians.
I am today announcing new measures through our economic plan to build thousands upon thousands upon thousands of new homes across the country.
Those measures include $15 billion in new loan funding meant to spur the construction of affordable homes. The feds are also investing $1 billion in new spending to help construct more public housing across the country. Freeland says the $1 billion fund will start in 2025, and here in Toronto, that timeline wasn't well received.
We are in the middle of housing crisis, whether it's for children, families, refugees.
Mayor Chow says the money must come faster, highlighting the urgency of Toronto's housing crisis.
And we saw just a few days ago refugees died being in a tent.
The province joining the mayor's call in a statement to CBC saying the federal government must meet its obligation to support Ontario municipalities that are struggling to cope with the record number of asylum claimants that have come to Ontario over the past year.
It's the number one crisis in the country.
The Residential Construction Council of Ontario says the announcements today are good news, but Canada needs to speed up approval processes for home starts. The council says we rank amongst the slowest in the developed world.
We really do need to modernize that process, make it more predictable, make it more accountable.
That's something Ottawa is aiming to do with their Accelerator Fund, a plan awarding municipalities for cutting red tape and fixing outdated zoning policies.
There's a plan there. It's promising, but people need more, faster.
Chow says the city is still waiting for approval of its application for that fund, leaving her and the city left wanting. Patrick Swadden, CBC News, Toronto.
To Caledon now, and a triple shooting that left one person dead and two others in hospital. Greg Ross spoke with rattled neighbors in the small community.
Police were called to this home just before midnight after reports of gunshots. This man, who rents a basement apartment in the house next door, says he was in bed and it woke him up.
Just gunshots. That's the only thing I heard. I didn't know where they're coming from, right?
Police arrived to find one person had died. Two others were taken to hospital. Hours later, a truck was found on fire not far away at Old Baseline Road and Credit View Road in Caledon. Police say it may be connected to the shooting. They say they're now looking for multiple suspects, and it has some nearby residents concerned.
I'm scared. Actually, yeah. I'm scared.
I'm so shocked right now, I don't know what's going on.
This man, who also lives next door with his family, says the people who lived in this home kept to themselves.
I don't know. We never talked to them. Yeah, we don't know what's going on.
Neighbors did tell us that they often saw large transport trucks coming and going from the property.
Well, the big trucks, yeah, tractor trailers, they park over there, all the way over there. It's over here across too.
It was an issue that was addressed at a local council meeting earlier this month. Apparently, the owners of the property were ordered by the courts to stop using it as a transportation depot and not to alter the grade of the property. Last week, Caledon Council passed a motion to establish a trucking and illegal land use task force to look into the matter after receiving complaints that the owners of the property were not complying with the court order.
The north yard of this particular property was to be vacated completely by August 31st.
We've been told by a number of people in this area that they continue to have transport trucks on this property through October, but it's not clear if there's any connection between that trucking operation and the shooting that happened here last night. Police say that they're looking for multiple suspects, but there is no immediate threat to the community. And they're also asking anybody who might have dash cam footage from this area or the location where that burned out truck was found between the hours of 11 o'clock last night and 12:30 this morning to come forward and provide that video to police. Greg Ross, CBC News, Caledon.
Turning next to a home reno nightmare that police are hoping you'll pay attention to. A Scarborough couple says they lost their life savings after paying tens of thousands of dollars for home repairs that they later found out were not necessary and cost way too much. The company denies any wrongdoing, but the police are investigating and the couple is warning others. Ryan Patrick Jones shares the CBC Toronto exclusive.
These are the remnants of a contracting job gone wrong.
I'm an emotional wreck. I don't know if we'll ever be able to build our savings up again.
Judy Poirier says a contractor approached her partner in their front yard with an offer to cap their chimney. They agreed, but the contractors soon found other things they claimed needed fixing. First, it was the deck. Next, the roof shingles needed to be replaced. That ballooned, they say, into warnings their home had much bigger problems.
He used the words that there was damp wood, rotting wood, broken wood, mold. The roof was going to collapse. We were terrified.
The retired teachers paid $75,000 for what they thought were necessary structural repairs to the roof. They were asked to give bank drafts to a person they believed was a materials supplier, but they became suspicious over slow progress and a lack of paperwork. That's when they called in a contractor friend, and what he found made them kick the crew off their property.
I went up on the roof. I opened up a sheet that wasn't nailed. I looked inside the attic. There was no water damage. The roof could probably use shingles, absolutely, but nothing to do with tearing apart that roof.
We start fixing those framing job.
This roofer, who finished the work for less than $5,000, says the couple were grossly overcharged.
This kind of roof, if you, for example, replace the whole board and then replace the whole shingles, is going to cost around, it is not going to cost even more than $10,000.
The manager of Eagle Eye Roofing and Masonry told us the couple weren't happy with the work, but his employees were told to leave before they could fix it. We were also told the owner wasn't available for comment. The company doesn't appear to be registered in Ontario, and its business address is this UPS store on Bloor Street West. The company's website was recently taken down.
Just the simple.
Poirier and her partner have complained to police, claiming they were duped. Police say they're investigating. There are other companies with similar names, but they're in no way involved.
I just don't want people to be caught up in the same situation.
All of this is unfolding as Toronto police recently warned homeowners to be wary of door-to-door sales pitches from contractors using high-pressure sales tactics. Ryan Patrick Jones, CBC News, Toronto.
We are ending the soggy day that we had with yet more periods of rain through the overnight. Right now, it is 5 degrees in Toronto. And Colette, I know that you wanted to get started with the bus stop forecast for the morning.
Yeah, that's right, Chris. I thought I'd start here because with all the soggy conditions we're experiencing and have been through the day, you might be wondering, how am I going to send the kids off tomorrow? What are they going to need in terms of the gear? Well, for the morning commute or off to the bus stop, 6 degrees, some light showers or drizzle still possible, especially kind of those earlier morning hours, and then we should be drying out. But even into the afternoon, there could be the odd sprinkle here and there. And in a few areas away from the lake shore, a little bit of freezing drizzle early in the morning is possible through the GTA. So be aware of that, but temperatures seasonal or even a little bit above. And for Windsor, as you cool off a bit overnight, we come back up to 5 degrees by tomorrow morning. Again, a slim shower chance early, but up to 7 with those clouds starting to break up into the later afternoon. There's some of that freezing drizzle being picked up on the Canadian model, but otherwise there's not a lot of moisture that's going to be around, and most of that is in the morning, and then it clears away for us. 6 overnight, though, for Toronto, and 7 with a northwesterly flow into the afternoon, Chris.
All right, Colette, we'll talk to you again in just a few minutes. Major news today from our school system. The Ford government reaching a tentative deal today with the Elementary Teachers Union.
I'm just happy to see positive evolution and realization that kids need to be in school. And ultimately, I appreciate the partnership of all the parties for coming together. This is a good outcome. Well, I'll be the first to acknowledge I would have liked to be announcing this in September or August. I'm happy we're at the finish line today, and for literally nearly 1 million children, I know their parents are happy too.
FO members had voted 95% in favor of a strike if negotiations failed. Union leadership says the new deal improves working conditions, but it still has to be ratified by the union's 80,000-person membership. We spoke to one teacher who says he has mixed feelings about the tentative deal.
We have no details about it, so we're just expecting that we'll get more than what the government offered at the beginning, because it was very, very, very low. So we are just expecting that the government will do the right thing and offer something that it will be acceptable.
Now, the education minister says parts of the deal will still be going to binding arbitration, but he didn't say which parts. Meanwhile, the province is still negotiating with other teachers' unions. So potentially a win for the Ford government there tonight. But down at Ontario Place, a very different story. Tonight, legal action to tell you about over the government's environmental assessments of the redevelopment project. For that story, let's turn to Queen's Park reporter Lorenda Redekop.
A citizens group opposed to the redevelopment for Ontario Place has repeatedly tried and failed to stop the plans. So now it's turning to the courts.
We just want the Ontario government to follow its own laws.
The group argues it's actually a government-led project, not private. and so should require a full environmental assessment, including the area set to become a spa and water park by the company Therma. In question period, the infrastructure minister was asked about the legal filing.
Good news, we actually completed our Category C environmental assessment on Friday. It will be made public.
But the opposition says that will be a partial assessment and not include the Therma site. Minister Surma repeated her argument that the government is improving the attraction.
No one goes to Ontario Place anymore. The site is deteriorating. The site is flooding.
It's flooding, so the government's solution is put in an underground parking garage.
The opposition has raised questions about the cost of that parking, reportedly hundreds of millions of dollars, and also wants more information on the development.
If it's a provincial project and their hands are all over it, why not conduct a true environmental assessment? I think the government is afraid of what they would find.
Ontario Place for All says it's hoping for a response soon from the court. It also wants its injunction request deemed urgent if necessary to prevent any demolition. A spokesperson for Minister Surma responded, calling it unfortunate that special interest groups would attempt to use the court system to tie up the project. Lorenda Redicomp, CBC News.
Returning now to spotlight a little at-home civics class. A group of 5th and 6th graders gathered tonight to chat city politics ahead of their ward's by-election.
We want everyone to be able to afford food and housing and safety, and we also want him to open up fields and tracks and basketball hoops and tennis courts. So we can all have fun.
Yeah, the stuff that has been closed during COVID.
The kids were part of a mock election exercise at their social studies class, where they elected Scarborough Southwest candidate Suman Roy as their counselor. Roy joined tonight's event as students gathered to learn more about his proposals and Toronto's election system more generally. Eligible voters in Ward 20 can cast their ballot on November 30th. Taking you next to a recently built bike path along Eglinton, drawing the wrong kind of attention. Advocates for the blind say the new design is a potential danger. Clara Pasica explains why.
I'm walking along here, and I don't know if there's a bike path.
David Lepofsky, who is completely blind, moves his white cane in arcs and sweeps. He's trying to find the edge of the sidewalk on Eglinton Avenue West, just east of Avenue Road, so he knows where it is safe to walk. Undetectable to him, he's just wandered onto a new bike lane.
But I had no way of knowing that, because any other sidewalk I've walked on, they would never do something as idiotic as this.
The bike lanes recently built on this section of Eglinton are raised up from the road, a move meant to keep cyclists safer from cars, but they are now at the same level as pedestrians.
How on earth did they do it with such callous disregard for the safety of blind pedestrians? This is a mess.
A spokesperson for the city says her team conducted accessibility site visits and the change in texture of the stones was detectable. Lepofsky says this change is too subtle and blind residents or visitors to the city who do detect it can't be expected to know what it means. The city says these recently constructed bike lanes are not the city's preferred design.
Our preferred design today is to have the street and then the bikeway to be 50 millimeters above the street, and then the bikeway to be 50 millimeters below the sidewalk, so everybody's raised.
She says Eglinton was designed some 10 years ago, and bike lane designs the city prefers have since evolved. But the city will still support sidewalk-level bikeways in some contexts, especially when it's to accommodate utilities or when there is landscaping. Disability advocates who spoke to CBC say a bike lane simply should not be included if it's at the cost of blind pedestrian safety.
Like saying we know that seatbelts are, they're really good for you, and just deciding not to put them in a car. Just because. I mean, why would you use an old design if you know that there are newer ones?
Blind advocates who spoke to CBC say they want this design fixed everywhere it has been used and nixed as an option. Clara Pasica, CBC News.
Might like that after today's chilly rain, things really clear out through the day tomorrow.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Earlier in the day, it really was a very cold rain. And of course, we had areas with the freezing rain or freezing drizzle, plus the mix at times with wet snow, all kinds of conditions. So we're going to break out of this, but it takes a little time. Still some showers and drizzle overnight tonight and early tomorrow morning, some freezing drizzle. That risk is there. The temperatures, though, seasonal, not just for tomorrow for our daytime highs, although the northwesterly winds will kick in into the afternoon, but even into Thursday. And I think Thursday's still going to be a pretty nice day, but Thursday night, overnight into Friday, and as we head into the weekend, we are going to see a blast of colder air coming our way, and those temperatures really falling. Some of the overnight lows I'll show you in just a moment. Okay, so no record highs to worry about, but no record lows to worry about either. And these are your normals for this time of year, a daily maximum of 6 and a low around -1. So still some of that moisture associated with the system, but as the temperatures have come up, and in some cases those temps still rising into the overnight, that change over from some of that wet snow, although towards the Ottawa Valley into parts of Quebec, into the Laurentians, 5-10 centimeters of it before we see that changeover. Then lighter drizzle into early tomorrow morning, into the later afternoon, keeping in mind, the sun is setting at around 4:45. So by the time we get into some of these breaks, it may be a little later in the day, but hopefully seeing a little peek at sunshine. Thursday, we will have some cloud cover back through the GTA, but more sunshine into southwestern Ontario. And then again, it's the kind of thing where we get into kind of variable skies through the afternoon. So I still think Thursday looking just fine. Overnight temperatures tonight doing some interesting things from midnight. And then as we push towards the morning hours, you see it coming down in southwestern Ontario, going up elsewhere, but you will rebound there in Windsor and see that temperature popping back up to a daily high around 7, even 8 degrees. Same thing for Toronto after that morning shower or a little bit of freezing drizzle. There you go Thursday. And there you go, Chris. A look at some of those overnight temperatures. Watch out Saturday morning. That's going to be a cool start.
All right, we're watching out. Thank you, Colette. Have a great night. And that's it for us tonight. Dwight Drummond has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6, and I'll, of course, be back with you tomorrow night at 11. We'll see you then.